Good morning children. Today we are going to see 6th English Unit 2 Prose 2 When the Trees Walked. Dear children, in this lesson narrator tells his experience with his grandfather about the trees. Now let's see about the author. Children, the narrator of the story is Ruskin Bond. This is the picture of Ruskin Bond. He was born on May 19, 1934, Kasoli, Punjab. Ruskin Bond is an award-winning Indian author of more than 500 books, short stories, essays and novels. He lives with his family in Lander in Missouri, India. He was awarded Padma Shri in 1999 and Padma Bhushan in 2014. Now let us see the lesson section 1. Children, the story starts with the narrator and his grandfather sitting on the veranda steps. Narrator noticed the tendril of a creeping vine trailing nearby. Tendril means a small stem. Creeping vine means a plant with weak stem. Trailing means tracking. Children, once again I will explain. The narrator and his grandfather sitting on the veranda steps. Narrator noticed the tendril of a creeping vine trailing nearby. Narrator saw the tendril moving slowly towards grandfather. "20 minutes later, it had crossed the step and it was touching grandfather's feet." There is a scientific explanation for the plant's behavior. Something to do with light and warmth. But narrator thought it moved across the steps simply because it wanted to be near grandfather. Sometimes narrator sat beneath a tree. He feels lonely. But as soon as grandfather joined him, the garden became a happy place. Narrator grandfather served many years in the Indian Forest Service. So he liked trees and plants. After retirement, grandfather built a bungalow on the outer area of Dehradun. Grandfather planting trees all around the compound. Lime tree, mango tree, orange tree, guava tree, eucalyptus tree, jacaranda tree, Persian lilacs tree. There was other trees in the compound before the house was built, including old people tree. An old people tree broke through the wall of an abandoned outhouse. Abandoned is nothing but left without care, knocking the bricks down with its vigorous growth. Vigorous means healthy and strong. People trees have broad-chested trunk and slim-waisted leaves that spin like tops, which attract our attention and invites us into the shade. Grandmother wanted to cut down the people tree because people tree broke through the walls. But grandfather decided not to cut. He thought he could build another outhouse. Grandmother was not against trees, but she preferred growing flowers. Grandfather helped her not because he liked flowers garden, but he liked watching butterflies, attracted towards the flowers. Now let's see the glossary for section 1. First one, fertile, able to produce a lot of plants or crops. Second one, abandoned, left without care. Third one, vigorous, healthy and strong. Fourth one, creeping, a plant with weak stem. Now let us see section 2. Grandfather was not content with growing trees in their compound. During the rainy season, grandfather and narrator walked into the jungle beyond the riverbed with saplings which he could plant in the forest. But the narrator questioned grandfather that no one could come there. Grandfather replied that he was planting them for the forest and for the animals and birds for more food and shelter. Grandfather explains why do we need trees. Let's see. To attract rain. To prevent the banks of rivers from being washed away. And for fruits and flowers, leaf and seeds. And timber too. Men are cutting down the trees. But not replacing them. If we don't plant a few trees ourselves, a time will come when the world will be one great desert. Children, narrator thought of a world without trees became a sort of nightmare to him. Nightmare means a frightening dream. So, the narrator helped grandfather in his tree planting. And while we went about our work, grandfather taught me a poem by George Moyes. Woodman spared the tree, touched not a single bough. In youth it sheltered me, and I will protect it now. This is the poem taught to the narrator by his grandfather. Children, the meaning of the poem is, the poet asked the woodman to spare the tree that has been planted by his forefather. This tree was also the house of many wild birds. One day the trees will move again, said grandfather. They have been standing still for thousands of years. But there was a time when they could walk about like people. Then along came an interfering busybody who cast a spell over them, rooting them to one place. But grandfather said, they are always trying to move. How they reach out with their arms, like the banyan tree, with its travelling aerial roots, managed to get quite far. The narrator and grandfather saw an island in a dry riverbed in summer. During the rainy season, riverbed was flooded. Grandfather saw a small mango tree growing there. Then grandfather decided, if a small tree can grow here, So can others. Then grandfather and narrator planting tamarind, laburnum and coral. They spend the day planting them on the island. Now let us see the glossary for section 2. First one, protested, opposed or disagreed. Second one, nightmare, a frightening dream. Third one, interfering, stopping. Next, we can see section 3. The narrator spent the monsoon season with his grandparents. At every turn, there was something new to see. Out of the earth and rock and leafless. But the magic touch of the rains had brought life and greenness. You could see the broad vines, growing plants, sprang up in the most unlikely of places. A peepal tree could take root in the ceiling. A mango tree would spout on the windowsill. If you want to live in a tree, that's all right, by me, said grandmother crossly. But I like having a roof over my head, and I am not going to have my roof brought down by the jungle. During Second World War, narrator was sent away to a boarding school. The narrator went to live with his father in Delhi. Narrator grandparents sold the house and went to England. 2 or 3 years later, I too went to England and was away from India for several years. When narrator returned to Narrator after many years, he walked towards the dry riverbed. Narrator was surprised to see the spectacular view of the island, where they had planted coral tree saplings. Spectacular means amazing. Narrator could hear squirrels and quail asking him, "Who are you? Who are you?" The narrator could see that the trees recognized him and came nearer. They whispered something. Narrator noticed smaller trees, wild tree, grasses. The trees we had planted long ago had multiplied. They were walking again. In one small corner of the world, grandfather's dream had come true. Children, now we came to the end of the story. Now let's see the glossary for section 3. First one, rambling, wandering. Second one, sprout. When seeds begin to grow, small plant. Third one, spectacular, eye-catching. Fourth one, beckoned. To single with your hand to ask the person to come closer or follow. Children, now I will give you some important points from this lesson. Children, maintain a separate notebook for English. In case of any doubt, make a note of it, which will be clarified on the day of reopening. First one, grandfather built a bungalow and planted trees around it. Second one, during the rainy season, grandfather walked into the jungle and planted trees. Third one, during the Second World War, the author was sent to a boarding school. Fourth one, some years later, the author returned and saw the island. Fifth one, he looked around and noticed a beautiful small green paradise. Children, now it's time for question. Once again you can go through the story and answer for these questions. Put a true for the correct and a false for the incorrect statements. First one, grandfather had serviced many years in the Indian Forest Service. Second one, during the holidays, I went to live with my father in Narrator. Third one, my grandparent sold the house and went to Delhi. Fourth one, my grandfather taught me a poem by George Moyes. Fifth one, in the fertile June valley, plants and trees did not grow tall and strong. First one, when did the garden become a happy place for the author? Second one, what are the two reasons the author gives for the plants moving towards grandfather? Third one, why do we need trees? List 4 reasons that grandfather gives. Fourth one, how did grandfather's dream come true? Fifth one, describe what the author saw when he went back to the island.